Has introduced the No Rogue Rulings Act, limiting federal judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions, which would curtail their ability to make decisions that affect people outside their district. He is California Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, and he's the man behind that act, and he joins us now. Congressman, I don't know if you saw the particular arguments made or the response from this judge. I don't know what she's referencing when it comes to Nazis. Is she talking about American citizens who might have had a political affiliation akin to Nazis? But the Alien Enemies Act is about aliens in the United States, would apply to illegal aliens.
Well, not just aliens. Thank you for having me on. But it's not just aliens. These are people who are members of a terrorist organization. It has been deemed that, not because of who they are, but the organization they have, which does crimes and killings as a matter of policy. I think the important thing that we're dealing with rogue judges like this one is that you can't get rid of them all, but you have to get them back to the original intent. We are bound by the Constitution, which created one court, the Supreme Court. Every other court was designed to do something less than the Supreme Court. 9 men and women of the Supreme Court, they speak for the land. Individual district judges speak only for the cases before them and the plaintiffs before them.
And many would argue only for their jurisdiction, their regional jurisdiction under their purview. In fact, in looking at your act that you propose here, I was thinking today, Congressman, about the Federalist Papers, Federalist 81 in particular, written by Alexander Hamilton. And he wrote, "The power of constituting inferior courts is evidently calculated to obviate the necessity of having recourse to the Supreme Court in every case. It is intended to enable the national government to institute or authorize each state or district of the United States a tribunal competent to the determination," here's the key part, "of matters of national jurisdiction within their limits." Now, that's something we hope to have the Supreme Court rule on sometime soon, but you have an act of Congress also you want to put through that says you make a ruling, it's not nationwide, it's in your district.
Well, that's exactly right. And we do respect the fact that there is such a thing as a federal class action. In the last administration, there were more than 16 attorneys general who came together pleading cases. So there is a time in which a judge is looking at multiple districts, but it has to be based on those determinations which Congress has determined, not ones that one judge in Seattle or Hawaii or wherever. You know, there's about 700 judges, so you can imagine if each one of them got to be the U.S. Supreme Court, what purpose would the 9 men and women in Washington have if they were being simply preempted by a judge who makes a ruling often without even contacting the defendant, in this case, the United States government?
I think the argument in response to that would be you always have the appeals process up through the Supreme Court. But the argument that makes sense to me right now is, would the founders have ever envisioned a system where one of 600-700 district judges had powers equal to the presidency? And if they did envision that, would they have ever envisioned a day where you had this many judges of different political stripes where you could forum shop? You could go find the judge that you like to enjoin a president nationwide.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what the plaintiffs are doing in these cases, is shopping all over the country for a judge, almost always a judge appointed by the opposite party, to be sympathetic and give them what they want. In some cases, give them more than they're entitled to. You know, the big thing here is you have these judges making decisions. There's no plaintiff here. The reality is, if you had 50 plaintiffs from 50 different states, we could talk about whether it's a class action situation. It's not. It's very clear that they are trying to preempt the court. And more importantly, these temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions, it's not a question of appeal because, in fact, you don't want to be stopped and then appeal for months or years when you're the chief executive, especially when it's national security, something that the court has already ruled has very broad authority of the president and the president alone.
No, you have activist plaintiffs like the ACLU finding activist judges that are friendly, and then you can bog it down through the appellate process for months at a time to interrupt an agenda. That's a very easy way to take down the executive branch. All right, Congressman Darrell Issa, we'll monitor your bill. Thank you so much for being with us today.